Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. And I have to tell you, this is a series that I am coming to look forward to. It still amazes me that Mr. Millennial Mike will spend the time every week looking for questions, comments for me to react to. So I'm so appreciative. Mike, what do you got for us this week?
Well, we have our regular Q&A session. As you know, I scour the comment section looking for angry, heated, spicy comments with people who think that your takes are a little controversial. I also look for genuine, good questions about how to get started or what the economy's doing. We just kind of go through all of it. It's a little bit of a roundtable discussion between you and me and the commenters. So we're going to start with someone we've taken comments from before, and this is Angry Jay Crawford, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I was hoping this one made the list. Jay is really mad. I don't know what Jay. Do you need a therapy session? I'm not sure. Jay is cranky. Yeah.
He gives us some good things to talk about, so we can thank him for that. So
I do. Absolutely.
Jay went off on a bit of a rant here. So for the folks out there, if you leave a comment, if you try to make it concise, that's best. Because if you give me 3 or 4 paragraphs, I have no choice but to kind of edit it down. So Jay, if you feel like I'm misrepresenting your statement here, I'm sorry. But this is condensed slightly. Jay Crawford asks or says, so much for real estate being flat over the next 5 years. It's not happening. Median will be lower year over year before the year ends. Face it, Michael, you've been wrong. The only thing you've been right about is inventory going down these past couple of months, but everything else, you were wrong. Reventure may have been wrong 2 years ago, but since 2022, he's been right. He's ahead of the trend, and you are just playing catch up. Mike, in some places, those are fighting words.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day. Yeah, back in the day, I would, yeah, back in the day that would have been, yeah, fighting words. But I'm much older and lost a lot, so I don't nearly fight nearly as much. Always lost. But here's kind of a couple of things. First and foremost, I think calling a median home price year on year by the end of the year is stupid. So I think he's wrong. I think he said that, right? He's like median year on year will be negative this year. That is mathematically wrong.
Will be lower. He said it will be lower.
Well, did he say negative or he said lower? No, he said lower, right? Meaning negative.
Lower. Yeah, but
there's no chance, dude. There's no chance, Jay. I am sorry. That's just not possible. National median home price will not be negative year on year when we end the year. I'm sorry, Jay. I don't know. Do you have to go back and understand median? And I don't understand. So whatever. That's just wrong. Second, I think he said in the article, Reventure may have been wrong in 2020 or 2 years ago. May have been wrong? May have been wrong? Really? May have been wrong? He hurt people bad. It was the second best year ever to buy, and he said a crash was coming. He may have been wrong? Come on. If we're going to call a spade, he was wrong. There's no may in that statement. And then lastly, he's saying Reventure is right when he hasn't been wrong once. Reventure is calling 30-40% crash nationally speaking. I don't see it. That's mathematically tough to do unless we have 9% mortgage rates, 10% unemployment, World War III is taken off. You can get there, but with the daily bombardment of crash videos, Jay, what are you talking about? And then let me close with this. This is just wacky. I hope Reventure is right. I want him to be right. I would like nothing better. I have set up my portfolio in dry powder for Reventure to be right. I wish, pray, voodoo dolls, whatever it is, that he is right and I am wrong. But let's be clear. He was wrong 2 years ago. There's no may in that. Second, Jay, we will not be down year on year median home price this year. That's mathematically nearly impossible. So, Jay, I don't know what to tell you, buddy, but thank you for the comments. I really do appreciate the hate and spite that you give me when you leave a reply.
Yeah, he gives us some good ammo to work with. As far as Reventure, it's like a broken clock is still right twice a day. This is the problem I have with Peter Schiff, who I like to listen to Peter Schiff. But if Peter Schiff if he's been calling for a crash for the last 14, 15 years, and then a crash happens, was he right? Or does he just say the same thing and eventually he's going to be right? So take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, that Jay. Jay, do you need a hug? Do you need a hug, Jay? I'm going to give you a hug. It'll be okay, buddy. It'll be okay.
All right, we're going to go from one emotional high to another. So after Jay, Arthur Garcia, who thinks that Mike is the man and BiggerPockets is missing out, says BPCon is missing out because listening to you 12 years ago at the first BPCon made him a multi-millionaire. And we're going to follow it up with John Nada, who says, some of us came to your channel, Mike, to get away from BiggerPockets. Watching a few minutes of a bunch of their videos for a week or 2 weeks almost made him give up on investing. He's so glad that you do what you do. So, Mike, tell us about the difference between you and BiggerPockets. Why weren't you invited?
So that's really two different questions. So why I wasn't invited probably is because I'm not going to probably I'll probably say what I think and what I feel, and you'll see at 9 o'clock exactly what that is. I wouldn't parrot the talk track of bigger is better and syndication is great and Burr is easy and all this stuff that lets them sell a lot of books and sell out events. And I won't preach cheap, fast, or easy. Real estate investing, as I shared in the BiggerPockets video that goes live at 9 a.m. today, has produced 90% of millionaires, right? That's according to, I think it was Andrew Carnegie. And I don't think it's fast, quick, or easy. I think it takes work. I think it takes focus. I think it takes watching the lending market. I think it takes adapting. And I think it's hard. There's a path. Everybody can follow it. House hacking is the cheat code to wealth. You did it. A lot of my guests did it. It's an amazing thing. So I think everybody can do it, but it's not cheap, not fast, and not easy. And I won't sell my soul to get on a BiggerPocket stage. So I think that's why I wasn't invited. The difference is I know big time people. I learned very early on after retiring at 45 that if you go to real estate meetups and you're the guest speaker and you talk about having hundreds of units, it's a fun event. You get a little attaboys, you get some pictures. But when you go out in the parking lot and you hear people talking and they're like, honey, we can't do that, or he got lucky, or whatever it is, I'm like, I don't go to those meetups to get ego strokes. I go there to change people's lives. So you very, very rarely will hear me quote something about Olivia and I. I don't want to big time people. I want to talk about getting to 4. I want to talk about getting 1. I want to talk about this or that. I want it to be about the people. And I believe what's happened at BiggerPockets, because again, I was a very early contributor. When Josh Dorkin was in his basement, you see that early interview. Go back and watch that. If you have BiggerPockets event from Denver, my story hasn't changed. And I think that's important to see. In 22 years, my story hasn't changed. Do the work, focus, daily discipline, watch your network, cash flow day one, 30-year financing, no alligators. It's all the same stuff. I may have gotten better at saying it, but yeah. So I think BiggerPockets sold its soul when it became a publishing house. They sell millions and millions and millions and millions of books. I think there are people on that now that have built reputations and frankly will be proven to hurt people as they do bigger is better and use their names for syndications. I'm not going to do that. So I think there's lots of differences. So I believe in doing the work. I do not believe in saying fast, cheap, or easy.
Yeah. My personal opinion has always been that BiggerPockets feels to me like they're more interested in selling boot camps, courses, and books than they are in actually helping people get started. So I found your channel a long time ago, very long time ago, and have followed it ever since. All right. We're going to move into a bunch of different random topics. So here's an interesting one. HELOC interest rates. Nicholas Massey says, Mike, with HELOCs being tied to the prime rate a lot of the time, what's your prediction for how high the prime rate could go? Do you think that HELOCs even have the ability to affect it?
Yeah, I think HELOCs are going up. I think there's a couple of things when this question, there's really a deeper question because I keep reminding people there's two markets. There's a housing market and a lending market. So I believe what's going to happen over the next 12 months is the easy answer is rates are going up, but that's only part of the answer. The more meaty topic is lenders are going to get nervous. So what does that mean? Well, first off, their margin's going to increase. It's going to go from an average of 1.7 to 3 or 3.5. That's expensive. They're going to lower LTVs, right? You and I used to be able to get LTVs at 80%. Now it's 75. Then it'll be 70. Then people were getting 90% HELOCs. Then it'll be 80. Then you'll have banks close HELOCs. I've already heard people have HELOCs cut. I've heard credit cards get cut. Folks, the lending market, I would actually say focusing on the rates, the last thing to look on. It's how nervous are they? And the good news is next week, starting Friday, we get JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, and one other reporting earnings. So we're going to find out how the banks are doing, and you might get nervous. I don't know. So I don't think it's the rate. I think it's, our bank's still going to lend.
Alrighty. How about an overall economy question? So this one is about people cutting back and what those implications might be. So from Michael Curtis, he says, Mike, would love your opinion on high food and gas prices causing consumer budgets to cut out unnecessary spending, which would cause overall demand to decrease, leading to layoffs. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's, generally speaking, how the economic cycle works. It's called demand destruction, right? There's an old saying, right, that we hear when we study economics, is the cure for high prices is high prices, right? Because you only have so much discretionary income. And if you really look at the stats, the average family has very little margin of safety or discretionary income. So if a family had an extra $200 that they could blow on whatever, and food goes up 5% and gas goes up 6% and this and that, and 200 goes to zero really, really quickly. And there was an article I talked about in the Daily Financial News sometime last week talking about streaming services, people cutting back because there are so many. And, oh, by the way, they won't cut back on Netflix. They'll cut back on eating out, right? So people are already making discretionary decisions. It is bad. It is going to get worse. It's frankly why I think Apple will miss, because who needs another $1,400 phone? It's probably why Tesla will miss, because who needs a $90,000 EV, right? All of these, the cure for high prices is high prices. So I think he's right. I think it's happening. And unfortunately, it will happen all of next year.
So typically when I go back after you've uploaded this video and I rewatch the video and I like the video and I leave a comment for the algorithm, what I've been trying to do is I try to listen to whatever the most profound statement was of each video we do, whatever the best quote was. And I think that was it. The cure for high prices is high prices. That's going to be my comment on this video. So, oh, by the way, like the video, subscribe to the channel, fellas. We got to try to get Mike to 50,000 here. Okay. Now, this was an interesting one. You did a video, you mentioned this topic with Jonathan Twombly. I think you also chatted about it with Matt, a lumberjack. So the topic is low interest rates are not the norm. And then you had gone on to talk about how there's an entire generation of folks who don't know how to invest when interest rates are high. So Harry Hunter asks, people will eventually understand higher interest rates are normal and they actually have to take a job and work. False millionaires will quickly realize they are broke. So Mike, talk about that a little bit and talk more about how people in my generation who's never even seen high interest rates, we just don't know what to do.
I think there's a couple of things there. And, you can't control when you were born, right? So I don't want to point at generations. I don't think that's fair, right? If you were born with, if you became an adult in the last 14 years, you haven't experienced a recession, you don't really know what rates are normalized. That's not on you. So I don't like that whole pointing at generation things. Because again, I was, when I was young, we got pointed out by the baby boomers and silent generation. And I hate the generational divide that we try to put out there. So that kind of annoys me. But everyone, myself included, has been spoiled by a loose monetary policy, by low rates. And I'm on the record as saying the Fed broke the housing market because they kept rates too low for too long just the last 2 years. But you could argue that the stock market is broken because, again, companies have been able to, when you have companies that can just borrow money and survive and not make a profit, that's not the sign of capitalism that I certainly learned about in school. That's just a cheap debt market and too much money around. So we are going to go through this painful adjustment where companies will get bankrupt. I talked about this on the Daily Financial News, I think 2 weeks ago. So I might be off, but some scary ass number, like 20% of public companies don't make enough profit to pay their debt. That is a zombie company, let alone overhead. They don't make enough money to pay their debt. That's a problem. And, you know, by comparison, the market that blew me up, the .com crash, it was only 6%. So when I remember the .com craziness, I remember people selling things and like wrapping money around them, like they were losing money and they made it up on volume. So you just lost money faster. To think about the companies today that are 2 or 3x higher percentage-wise is frightening. So yes, there is going to be a huge and painful adjustment as rates, I'm going to call them normalize. We're not going to high rates, right? High rates in my mind would be 30-year mortgages at 9 or 10. I think we're going to normalize it 6, 7, 8. Having 30-year money under 6, not normal. Having it under 4, really, really not normal. And oh my God, under 3, are you kidding me? So yeah, I think there's a whole lot of renormalization, lots of pain. If you're Dave Ramsey, if you're a syndicator with bridge debt, you're effed. You're just effed because the debt market changed, rates changed, lending changed. You're broke and you don't know it yet. It's going to be painful for some.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely can understand how people who in my generation have absolutely no perspective on what it's like to invest with 7s or 8s could feel like the end of the world is here. Because how can we possibly make these deals work? Well, you
and let's not forget your generation really hasn't seen a recession of note. You think about higher rates into a recession, into rising unemployment. That's a painful combination, and it's coming, I think.
Yeah. I was 17 when the Great Recession started. So some of the elder millennials caught it, but some of us didn't, and certainly Gen Z didn't. Yeah. Okay, we got 3 questions left, and 2 of them are about the Fed. They're a little bit longer, but I thought they were kind of interesting questions. So David asks, he says, something is wrong when the unemployment rate is going down and interest rates are going up. You would think that the Fed's interest rate hikes would be having an impact by now. But for some reason, they're not working. Now, I thought, Mike, you and I had done a video on Milton Friedman recently, a few weeks ago, and he talked about a built-in delay between the Fed action and actual changes occurring. So my question to you is this a delay between the Fed's action and change occurring, or is what the Fed doing simply not working?
Yeah, until proven otherwise, this is definitely the delay. I wouldn't expect because again, you have to remember where we are in the year as well, right? We're now heading into the winter season, which is holiday hiring, seasonal hiring. So I would expect unemployment to be ticking up probably February, March, April. If it doesn't, then we may have a different discussion. Right now, it's just the delay, right? Whatever they did last month is a 6, 9, 12, possibly 18-month delay. It's coming. My guess is Q1. So yeah, I think Milton Friedman is still right till proven otherwise.
Right. Okay. The Fed is bluffing, and here's why. Lucas McDonald, he says, Mike, here's some food for thought. I know you seem to put a lot of stock into what Powell has said about staying the course on rates, but you're also a math guy, so consider this. The longer the Fed keeps rates high, the 10-year hovering at or above 4%, the more the U.S. government debt gets rolled over from a sub 1% rate to that higher 4+% rate. At $31 trillion in national debt, we'll soon be paying over $1 trillion a year in interest alone. They have to pivot. Powell knows this, and he's bluffing. What do you think?
I disagree with that statement entirely. No, I mean, I understand the math. He's right. It does eventually become a problem, but enough of our debt doesn't roll over that quickly that this becomes a problem. They can keep rates at 4 or 5% for quarters, maybe even a year, and we'll roll over just portion of that $31 trillion. If they kept rates that high for 5 or 6 years, that's a huge problem.
Right.
But no, I mean, it's not like all the debt resets day one and we're paying 4% on everything. It's a very slow process of churning that out. So, and oh, by the way, let's not forget a lot of the debt at 1% was done with 5 or 10 years. So it's a long time before that happens. So, I mean, he's right mathematically. It's just not how the system works. It certainly could be a problem years out, but it's not going to be a problem this year.
Yeah, and I think the key takeaway there is just because the rate goes up doesn't mean that all $31 trillion instantaneously gets adjusted to the new rate. It's only a portion of it, right? So they can hold on to that a little while. Okay. Last question. And this is sort of a question, sort of a topic I just want to hear you talk about. So I'm going to start with a story. Last night, I filled up my tank of gas for $5.79 a gallon. It hurt. Only 2 weeks ago at Costco, I filled up for $3.99. So gas has been jumping up extremely quickly in the last 2 weeks. And when I was a kid, I remember going to the gas station. I grew up extremely poor. And I remember putting $5 in the gas tank, and it would be like, you'd get like 3.5, maybe 4 gallons of gas. And I remember when gas first got over like the $2, $2.50 range, my mom saying, man, if I know $5 are going to get me 5 gallons of gas for poor people like us, we know how far we can drive with that. But now if it's only getting us like 2 gallons, it's a lot harder to plan our lives out. So my question for you, Mike, is at what point do gas prices go so high that something snaps or something breaks in the economy? And what will it be, and what will the people do?
I remember those days as well. As people know my story. Yeah, So I just want to make sure I understand the story. So you filled up gas station basically in the same spot. It wasn't like you were cheating. You filled up once here and then you filled up once in California.
So in the same neighborhood, but I was at a non-Costco. Right. But yeah, the cost at Costco was up $1.25 in a 2-week period.
Yeah, so California, where I'm at, the last time I filled up, which I think was a couple of days ago, was almost $7, like $6.89 or something. So, yeah, thank you, Gavin. Thank you, King Gavin. I think we learned. And I will just ask you to go back in your memory in your Instagram post or your stories or whatever they're called. When did you start seeing people take pictures of the gas pump? And then they had these Biden stickers saying, I did that, or whatever it was. So in my memory, that was around $5 national average is when my feed just got full of them.
Right.
So I think we learned the answer, the national average 5. Now, the last time I checked, and I haven't checked this week, it's getting close to 4. That was before OPEC cut 2 million. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, we know we have to refill. It's just going to be bad, man. So I think the answer is $5 national. But inflation is a regressive tax, and it hurts the poor the most. Look at eggs. Just odd things are just stupid expensive now. And I don't have very many good things to say about 2023. It's going to be pretty ugly.
Yeah. I just, as I filled up last night, I thought to myself, I remember what it was like when I was so poor when I was a kid. And when you would look at those prices and be like, what are we going to do? We don't have any money. What do you do? And I just feel bad. I can't stand politicians. And I feel bad for the average people who the politicians claim to want to help. And you look at them and it's like, yeah, I can afford this inconvenience, which sucks. But what about old me? Like, there was nothing I could have done back then, and nothing that a lot of people can do right now. And I hate to see it.
Yeah. Well, the answer is you're going to get a bike. You're going to walk a lot more. You're not going to do things again. Yeah. As we said earlier, the cure for high prices is
high prices.
Yeah. So Mike, thank you for doing this. I still think it's amazing. You spend hours of your life curating a list like this. Where can people find you?
If you just Google or Instagram or YouTube, Millennial Mike, I should pop up. I usually talk about out-of-state investing. That's what I got on my channel.
Thank you, buddy.